Okay, so welcome back, everyone. This is the last debate of this tryout tournament. The topic is this house supports the rise of virtual influencers. So let's please have the first speaker from side proposition.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, as the proposition team will be defending the following motion. This House supports the rise of virtual influencers. Panel, I will be doing two things. I will first discuss the definitions, then I will move on to my arguments. So we define a virtual influencer as a fictional computer-generated person who has the realistic characteristics, features, and personality of a human. They are used for a variety of marketing-related purposes, but mostly for social media marketing, as an alternative for human or real influencers. During this debate, we will be discussing and explaining in depth the reasons why we support the rise of virtual influencers. As a first speaker, I will be discussing the power I believe these influencers have for brands on driving sales and generating awareness and accessibility. The second speaker will be talking about about how these brands have control over virtual influencers. I will now start my arguments. Unlike what most people think, influencers have always existed in one form or another. They have used their status and power to affect trends and purchasing decisions of their audiences. But in the last few years, we have seen the rise of virtual influencers. The traditional influencer profession is rapidly evolving and transforming. This provided an opportunity for a new kind of influencer, virtual influencers. These characters have human features and they are purposefully made to look like humans to allow followers to connect with them and create a bond of trust that will then influence their purchasing decisions. According to a 2022 virtual influencer survey conducted by the Influencer Marketing Factory, 58% of respondents follow at least one virtual influencer, and 35% of consumers say they had purchased a product promoted by a virtual influencer. Those aged between 18 and 44 years were most likely to have purchased a product that a virtual influencer promoted. So here, the main purpose of an influencer is to reach as many people as possible. These virtual influencers have no physical or geographical limitations. This allows them to grow their online presence and quickly attract attention. With this being said, partnering up with these influencers is going to cost less money, time, and energy, since they are like virtual, they're not real, so they're not going to pay money for anything. So it's going to cost them less time and less energy, and it's going to drive sales and also generate awareness. And many companies have entered into partnerships with these influencers. And for example, we have a lot of influencers. For example, Ludo Magulu, she has 6 million Instagram followers. We have also Lil Michaela, she has 3 million Instagram followers. And Yigimon that has 1.5 million Instagram influencers. And all of these influencers have a really, really big audience. Like they have millions and millions of followers that are, following them. And when these influencers have worked with many, many notable brands such as Balmain, Balenciaga, Prada, etc. And we can see that companies prefer working with virtual influencers. So you might ask yourselves, why would they work with virtual influencers and prefer them over real influencers? Well, because they can rely on them to post in time. Since they're not real, they don't really have other occupations. They have more free time. You can say this like this: they have more free time. They don't have other occupations, so they will post in time, and they will not stray off brand. And they also, as I said, we don't need to hire makeup artists. We don't need to rent studios. We don't need to worry about deadlines or to book flights, or we do not need to worry, for example, real influencers may have, for example, emergencies, so they won't respect some deadlines, or they will be, for example, they will be sick, or they won't be emotional in a stable emotion condition, so they won't be able to deliver their work in time. And also they need makeup artists, and they need studios and flights, etc., etc. All of these things, uh, companies do not need to worry about all of these things when they are working with virtual influencers. And also, as I said, these virtual influencers have, according to the survey we mentioned earlier, they have a big influence on people. So, for example, when they see a virtual influencer that has human features, promoting certain a brand or a certain product, they will go and purchase that product because they've been influenced by that virtual influencer. And also, these virtual influencers are, their image is good. They're created in a perfect way to influence more and more people. So we can conclude here that virtual influencers are likely to stay, which means that consumers, brands, influencers in digital campaigns will have to adapt accordingly. So for all of these reasons, we as the proposition team are proud to propose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that speech. The speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 37 seconds. Now let's welcome the first speaker from side opposition.
Okay, so I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Hello, ladies. Hello, gentlemen. I'm honored today to be the first speaker of the opposition team. So today I will be doing 3 major things. Firstly, I will do some rebuttals. Then I will do a tiny bit of a case building, and lastly, I will present to you my arguments. So let's begin. What has the other team really talks about? Within this debate, they really focus within her first speech. And they really did, in fact, focus on how those virtual influencers are going to promote the brand. And also, a really important thing that I think hasn't been qualified by the other team is that they did not give stakeholders, but I will do that further on my debate. So let's say they cost one of the points that the other speaker says, that they cost less money, less time and energy, and they raise awareness. Well, I aim to prove to you that it's totally false, and it's actually not happening even in the best case scenario. When they talk about how when they talk about flights and how they're gonna cost less money for those brands, and for brands she took, for example, Balenciaga, products, etc. Well, I'm here to tell you those are multinational brands. The issue is not money whatsoever. So this point is false. When they said it take less time and energy, no, they do not take less time, neither less energy, because those virtual people need to be created by thousands of billions of people and it costs a lot of money, because it's not someone who's already existing, so you're just paying something to exist, and because you need algorithms, you need AI, etc. And so this is pointless. And how they're going to raise awareness?
Point of information.
Not taken. Another point is that how they're not sick. So the influencers neither going to be sick. They're going to be stable emotionally and mentally. Well, who are those influencers? People who represent us, people that we feel the most close to. If we're going to be influenced, at least it's going to be by people who are as us, not only by features, but only emotionally and and physically. I mean, not only by their features. And this is what's the problem with virtual influencers. They do not represent us in any way. And this is the issue. And they stand up in such unrealistic points that they're not, they took such an unrealistic point, it's toxic. And I'll go further more on that later in my arguments. When also she said the image of good, as a matter of fact, the stable case that she said, their perfect way. Well, I am here to tell you, we are not perfect. And so and there's no one perfect on this world. Those figures, those algorithms have been created by people. And so this perfect way do not exist. And this perfect way is this perfect ways can really have a bad impact on people. And this is how I have proven to you by every point, and I have rebutted every point that have been said on the first speech of the opposition team. So let me now just give you, not taken. So let me now just give you some definitions. So virtual influencers are digital creations. They are exactly created by consumer in digital mediums. Further, it is important to understand when a virtual influencer classified themselves as a robot, they saw on character when speaking about the lore of their fictional storyline. So we can really imagine what these virtual influencers are. Another point is that what is really fundamental for virtual influencers is that those influencers are like fictional characters from Garfield to Spider-Man. They're totally fictional, and they exist behind the fourth wall. These characters rarely, if ever, break the immersion of their own storyline. The art of placing a character in a life they believe to be their own allows fans to immerse themselves in a similar situation of disbelief. By giving a fictional character belief in themselves, you grant them self-agency. When a first-person virtual personality is paired with well-thought-of storyline and captivating design, the virtual influencer truly comes to life in their own rights. And this is the issue. And this is how we're going to review how this point is false. So now, and also I would like to give to you my stakeholders. So today we have three stakeholders, the public, the brands, and the influencers. And we are going to prove to you within our case, within me and the second speaker and the third speaker, how those three stakeholders are going to benefit within our side of the house. So now let me give you my own insight on this matter. Those virtual influencer, they maintain an unrealistic life standards, and they maintain an unrealistic beauty standards, as I have already pointed out in my rebuttals. So this is my argument, is that how they're somewhat in a way toxic. So by now it's known that the unrealistic body standards we encounter in social media every day have a negative impact on society. Half of women who compare themselves to the images they see on social media compare their bodies. The problem seems to be even worse for teenage girls, as Instagram has made body image issues worse for 1 in 3 girls. That is ginormous. Also, virtual influencers, meanwhile, almost always have perfectly sculpted body and flawless faces. We can take, for instance, Lil Michaela, who has 3 million followers, and it's an algorithm, is the EI, is a CGSI, who is perfect with flawless features, flawless face, flawless hair. This is totally unrealistic and totally toxic for such teenage girls, and also for women in general, not only for women.
UI
not taken. So those virtual influencers who has those perfectly sculptured faces and bodies, they're never tired, never face any real adversity, and always say the right thing. It's worth questioning if your brand really should be closely associated with something that so clearly has a negative impact on a lot of young people. One could use, of course, argue a similar point for real influencer, but the difference is in the degree of fakery involved. It's one thing to edit out a few skin blemishes. Creating an entirely fictional character is another color of fishing. This is the issue that we are talking about. Yes, you can say that Influencers will do the same thing, but here it's a total fictional character that you have been created, and this is lack of realism. This is just unrealistic. Another point that I really think we should point out and want protect time. Another point that I think we should click up to point out is how we are losing the base of influencing, as I've already mentioned, and this is my second argument. One of the reasons why influencer marketing has become the powerhouse it is today, it is because it's influencers marketing with a sense of human connections. Influencers cultivate audience with shared values and interests, whom over time come to trust them. This is invaluable for brands looking to expand their reach, as establish trustworthiness is one of the most significant hurdles in acquiring new customers. Not only that, but when someone engages with influencing marketing, it opens the door to make connecting with like-minded individuals. This connection foster a sense of community and belonging, and can be contribute to overall sense of well-being, because this is what we want at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we want the well-being for everyone, and this is what our side of the house is promoting. We are neither promoting perfect bodies or perfect human being, or has already have been said by the Ardent team, a perfect way or image of good. This is not what we are promoting, and this is just unrealistic. When we put those virtual characters, when we put those fictional characters, you are putting out and you are promoting a perfect way of being that you will never achieve, and can actually destroy someone mentally and physically. And with all the points I have been pointed out earlier and have been pointed out, I'm really proud to oppose. And thank you for listening to my speech.
Thank you very much. The speaker spoke for 8 minutes and 27 seconds. Let's please welcome the second speaker from side proposition.
Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The rise of virtual influencers is undeniable, certain, and evident. There is no need to try to refute that or try to change that, which is why the opposition team is trying to do. The opposite team is supporting and trying to achieve an idea that is undoable and unattainable, and therefore irrational, as it is way more beneficial for everybody to accept influencers and virtual influencers and try to improve their what they do, as their influence and impact is irrefutable. Ladies and gentlemen, my team and I are defending the logical side, which is supporting the rise of virtual influencers, because we know the opposite team, included, that it is more beneficial to support and ameliorate their jobs instead of going to great lengths trying to find fault with them. First, I will be refuting my the opposite team arguments. I'll start with their first with what they said first. My dear opponent said that they cost less. That the fact that they cost less money is wrong because they are used by multinational companies. I do not see how that's a valid point or how that this makes sense, because multinational companies also have a budget and also have and financial aspect also plays a role in them. Second, the opposite team said that we cannot identify with virtual influencers. Exactly, we cannot identify with virtual influencers. I in fact agree with this point, because virtual influencers are not there to are not there for us to relate to them. In fact, they are virtual for a reason. Because we know that because as opposite of human influencers, who as also humans relate to, who present their lives as being perfect, which are of course blatant lies. This is for example toxic. But when we're talking about virtual influencers, they are virtual for the only purpose of us not relating to them, because unconsciously we are aware that they're not real. The main advantage for brands is that they have complete control over the influencers and everything they do and say. For instance, brands are in a position to tailor the persona of the influencer to associate with their image and align directly with their values. And this way, brands can associate themselves with the influencers who espouses exactly the message they want to communicate with their fans. Unlike real influencers, virtual influencers don't come laden with controversial views of the word or subscribe to the unpopular political ideologies, which might be at odds with the brand's preferred identity. In addition, they don't have to worry about what the influencer does in their personal life and whether they might engage in behavior that could potentially damage the brand.
Point of information.
There are examples where influencers have behaved badly, causing brands to have I don't accept that. Have to distance themselves in order to limit the damage to their reputation. Plus, there's a lot of creative freedom for brands when it comes to using virtual influencers. They can either design their own influencer or work with Ready to use influencers that specialist marketing agencies have created for this purpose. Brands can also create an entire universe for their virtual influencers if they have the ambition to do so. In this way, brands are tapping into a new means of capturing consumers' attention for longer by allowing them to invest their time following a narrative. As we have seen with virtual personalities like Lil Michaela, consumers become fans of the virtual influencers just as they would like with a real life celebrity. Thanks to virtual influencers, one thing brands love when working with virtual influencers is that you don't need to spend money on flight, just like my teammate said, worry about deadlines and stable emotional conditions of real influencers. Another advantage, which is an argument that the opposite team did not refute. Another advantage that brands can get from working with virtual influencers is that brand acquires not only a promotional post or a story, but a burst in interest from mass media who are now excited to write about 3G models. Later on, such a positive side effect will faint. Yet, in the beginning, your campaign will surely achieve the desired attention. Virtual influencers can be at several places without the time turner at the same time and work for different campaigns simultaneously. What humans cannot do. With constant technological onrush in mind, marketers can assume that eventually the production and creation of such influencers will be cheaper and more advanced. AI, and neural networks implementation is not far behind. And this is what the future is about. We cannot stay behind. This is what the future is about. It is absurd to go and try to stand against virtual influencers, especially with younger people being more and more heavily present on the internet. Now younger people even listen to news from influencers, like the case with Hugo Decrypte. There is no way that there's anything can be done outside the internet. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That speech was 5 minutes and 45 seconds. Now let's please welcome the second speaker.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Let's establish something here. By supporting the motion, proposition is setting the ground for a total control of big companies for social media. There's no place for human influencers in their world, and we will show you why this is wrong during this debate. So I have two arguments in today's debate. First, how it gives a disconnect from reality and the illusion that the person they're seeing is real. And second, how it's robbing other influencers of the opportunity to exert their passion just so a multi-million-dollar company can grow. But before that, I'll start with rebutting what proposition has given us so far. The first speaker gives us statistics of the very real and happening rise of virtual influencers, which is happening. Sure, this is happening, but we on this side of the house, we are showing why this is bad and why we cannot support that. Having this human decency, you cannot support that. And they gave us the argument that the rise of virtual influencers is something good because it helps them grow their social media presence more easily because they have no geographical limits, etc., etc. But how is that worth the countless issues they're causing, being body image issues and security? How is that even good for anybody other than the company owning that influencer? So what are you doing now? Supporting the growth of capitalism while also sacrificing principles of human decency that I will develop later on during my speech. Human influencers do not always deliver on deadlines. That's something they've given us. Yes, exactly, because they are human. So what is Is that the basis that you're putting your case on, that human influencers are unreliable? They've been doing a good job so far. I don't see what's the problem with them. They really focused on materialistic things, on the money that the brand is going to get, because they are not paying a real influencers. Pay brands like Gucci, Prada, Balenciaga, Honey. I don't think these brands need you to worry about them. They're doing fine all on their own. Don't worry. Worry more about the public who are consuming this and who are pushed to buy their products. Then they showed us how somehow virtual influencers raise awareness. As I'm going to show in my second argument, this is entirely false. Virtual influencers are ways of materialistic growth for big companies. They're not here to push for awareness. This is not their job. But second, in their second speech, they said that they can tailor that way. They can tailor their image and kind of control the message that gets sent and their image. Brands have total control of their image. Don't you think? Yes.
Why would you support the rise of the real influencers and not support the rise of virtual influencers?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Why would you support real influencers and not support the rise of virtual influencers?
Don't worry, that will be answered in my second speech today. I will come back to that POI. But second, they then mentioned that they're going to tailor their image and the message that is communicated. But don't you think that the only message being communicated here is buy our product, make us win more money? That is the only message ever being communicated. And if ever there is a message being communicated, it is just to be mainstream and to attract more consumers. With that being said, let's move on to my first argument, and that is the disconnect from reality. So these virtual influencers are not genuine. This is absolutely clear. One benefit of utilizing an influencer for a company is that the consumer will be more likely to buy a product they recommend, since they have some faith in what they have to say. And that faith is the problem. Little Michaela doesn't have an opinion about the products she puts forward. Therefore, it stands to reason that if an influencer is unable to use the product, how can a consumer trust their recommendation? While the virtual colonel wouldn't have the body he has with eating fried chicken, which he shows us regularly in his Instagram posts, Little Michaela cannot wear Prada on her non-existent body. So this is not a problem. This is not only a problem of the unattainable beauty standards our first speaker demonstrated to you, but more than that, it creates a disconnect from reality and the illusion that these CGI characters are not, that these CGI characters are real when they are not able to operate independently and therefore do not possess a natural human thought process. What they say and what they do is premeditated, but presented in such a way that is appealing and palpable to their audience. They will make you believe whatever the corporation needs you to believe to buy their product. And creating this illusion of a real person can be harmful on so many aspects, such as relegating real life to the back corner, only seeing the lives that can be created from scratch just however you want it to. It creates a dissatisfaction to the reality and the illusion for something that does not exist. Worse than that, some people do not even realize that the influencers they love and cherish so much are actually not real. And they keep on treating and thinking of that AI as a real person until a kind soul notifies them of the contrary. But then second, moving on to my second argument, in which I will respond to that POI, virtual influencers are robbing real influencers of the opportunity to exercise their passion. Brands can associate themselves with men with the help of virtual influencers in order to become more relatable and establish a stronger connection to the audience. And by making themselves more relatable, they're not only pushing a view of an entire corporate organization on the public, but they're also pushing people to spend more money for a company thinking it represents their ideals. As human beings, they're also turning to influencers who don't even exist to sell their products. It is robbing real influencers of the chance to exercise their passion. And in a few decades, we can predict the extinction of the species of real social media influencers, human ones, which is regrettable because so many people want to blow up on social media to share their thoughts, to generate change, a change that, mind you, will not happen if social media becomes solely a marketing tool. Because think about it, right now, social media is used as a platform to make change, to protest against oppression, to push for societal and political change, to advocate for the rights of so many disenfranchised people, or simply to post a genuine review about the disgusting Netflix show that is Jeffrey Dahmer. When virtual influencers will take over, This will no longer be possible under the rule of big corporate companies on social media. Social media will soon become a garbage bin of advertisements for various products. It will no longer be able to fulfill the very important role it is playing in pushing for awareness, in pushing for accountability and accountability and change, all of that just to generate more money. Ladies and gentlemen, is money worth abandoning all principles of human decency? Is it worth the people we're shutting down by supporting today's motion? Is it worth all the flames of passion we're extincting? We do not think so. We actually think the total opposite, and that the rise of virtual influencers is something that we cannot support having a speck of human decency. Thus, I am extremely proud to oppose.
Thank you very much. That speech was 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Now let's have the third speaker from side. I think it's proposition time. Yeah.
So I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. As we have just seen earlier with our two speakers, the rise of virtual influencers is something that we support and that you, dear opponents, should be supporting too. First of all, I will answer all of the opponents' arguments by supporting my partner's arguments. If you think that these virtual influencers are made up by people and by definition are perfect and don't look like us, don't you also think that real influencers, such as Kim Kardashian, for example, have a negative impact on women's body images? Don't you think that behind those real influencers lie hours of makeups, hairdressing, and filters? Don't you think that behind TikTokers and Instagram influencers' bodies lie surgeries, pills, and unhealthy diets? On the contrary, it's better not to identify with virtual people or influencers than seeing real people who are, as the opposition said earlier, like us and equal to us, and that might put unhealthy standards on us and young people on social media, since they are the base target and the target audience of these posts. So I'm not identifying with the CGI looking Hatsune Miku because I know that she isn't real, but I would feel bad if an influencer I follow and I'm supposed to identify with because they exist wears size 0 pants and it's 3 times less than me. Also, if you think that human decency relies on pixels and 3D models, you should review your definition of this concept. We are in a capitalist world. Companies are private, and by definition, yes?
Talking about real life human influencers, there's the good and the bad and the ugly being the Kardashians and TikTokers you're talking about, and the good being social influencers who are supporting body positivity and body neutrality even. So do you have that on your side of the motion?
Of course, but how we were talking about the virtual influencers was like very demonizing of them. You were like, these people are putting unhealthy standards on you, and you were talking as if there isn't also real people in the real world conveying those unhealthy standards. I'll keep going. Also, we are in a capitalist world. Companies are private, and by definition, they need to grow. They need to grow and make sales. Companies are required to specify in the law if the post of a certain influencer, whether it's be real or virtual, is an ad or not, with the hashtag and the bio. For example, if you're scrolling on Instagram, you actually see on the bottom of the post, hashtag ad, hashtag sponsorship, or even just under the name of the influencer that they are sponsoring a certain product of a certain company. So these people are transparent and they are required to show when they want to advertise products, where and how. And if you feel attacked by those, no, not accepting. And if you feel attacked by those CGI characters conveying capitalist messages, why aren't you talking about 3D ads you see on TV, on YouTube? They actually exist, and by the end of the day, they want your money, but they also want to save on budget for that matter, which is totally okay. Accept him.
These people you're talking about are not actual people, and the things they are pushing towards their audience are not things they've actually experienced, and they have no opinions on it.
Do you think that people who are actually sponsoring and advertising products in real life have actually tried the products? We've seen several influencers just falsely drink something because they don't really like the products. They just pretend to like it, as we've seen with our beloved company Bank Energy. And I'll keep going. So these virtual influencers are quintessential in driving brand sales and raising awareness among social media users. And my first partner showed it with the statistics related to the marketing impact of the virtual influencers on the 18 and 44 age group, which is the group that uses social media platforms more than any other one, since they grew up with its apparition or within its apparition. So we also have seen how these influencers are a perfect means of advertising brands and their products, since they are flexible, easy to control, and infinitely customizable. These influencers also require less money and time for accommodations, such as flying to a certain destination for brand sponsorship, or makeup artists, photographers, videographers, etc. What other parts of the job are required? Of course, especially online designers and programmers, which can work on more than one project at a time, which is saving money and time by definition. Not accepting. The biggest pro that brands would love when working with those virtual influencers is that they are easier to work with in terms of production. You don't need to rent big studios or arrive at Instagrammable locations for photo shoots, which can be thousands of miles away. So with constant technological onrush in mind, marketers can assume that eventually the production and creation of such influencers will be cheaper and more advanced, since AR, AI, and neural networks implementation is not far behind and is constantly evolving. So these virtual influencers also contribute positively to humanity as a whole, which has become more and more connected nowadays with the rise of the internet and the numerization of several movements and activities. In fact, they can even uncover stigma about several issues that are perceived negatively by society, whether it be in real life or online, so they can convey positive messages regarding insecurity, such as, I don't know, being overweight, underweight, having chronic illnesses, spreading awareness about invisible handicaps and how people deal with them on a daily basis. And by this effort of sharing struggles of real people through an online mediator, we not only can control how we want to convey the message, but we can also use a virtual influencer that can actually have a bigger following, which can count up to millions and millions of people. And we aren't capitalizing on handicapped people by making them work and share videos, which they obviously can't do sometimes because they are tired or have other things to do in their life. So we are choosing an online model to convey real-world messages. And actually, we can't identify those online accepting.
Since the beginning, you're failing to explain how are you going to support that ways, and you're failing just giving the materials stuff. You're saying that at lower cost, well, the companies are doing well without you.
I'm supporting the motion since I started my speech because I'm in the proposition team. I just reset the arguments of my partners and developed them, which what I'm supposed to do as a third speaker. So I think I already finished my speech, and the arguments I said and that the proposition team said as a whole were conveyed. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. The speech was 7 minutes and 30 seconds. We will now have the final speech of this debate, which would be the third speech of the opposition side.
Thank you. So I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Dear judges, I'm here today to be the third speaker of opposition side. During my speech, I'll be doing two major things. First, rebuilding the opposition case, my team's case, then some rebuttals. So let's start by rebuilding my team's case, opposition. The first speaker of my team, opposition, focused on the fact that it's maintaining unrealistic life standards, maintaining unrealistic beauty standards, that they're somewhat toxic. They always have those perfect bodies and faces, and they never tired, never face any real adversity, and always say the right thing. She said that it will question you if your brand really should be closely associated with something that so clearly has a negative impact on the long of young people. She gave the example of the influencer, a virtual influencer named Lemikela, that is perfect body, perfect face, and that creates insecurities to young children. Because just take into account that we're living in a world that there are young children, young people, and also adults that understand that. But young people, how they're gonna know that those are just created, that it is okay to have insecurities, it is okay to not be perfect, but they're just going to see that virtual influencer that is perfect, that say the right thing. And how they're gonna know? Just tell me how they're gonna know and take into account of that, because we're not living only adults that understand. Because young people, they also have social media, they also have phones, and they can see that, and that's affecting their mental health and how
Points of
they
information.
are acting towards that in real life, not taken. Then the second speaker of my team focused on the fact that virtual influencer, they how can we trust a virtual influencer who didn't even try that product? The customer won't trust a virtual character who promotes something that didn't even try that. We're not going to trust that. It is logical. Imagine a virtual influencer saying this a product is good, you should buy it, you should do that, and it was just promoting that to that brand. But in real life, it is not good, and that's going to create a lot of problems in our society. Yes, I'm going to take your POI. Is there any?
It's too late, I wanted to ask on the spot. You can keep going.
Sorry?
I asked on the spot, so you can just keep going. No POI asked.
Okay. Then the second speaker of my team focused also about another argument, which is about that they are turning to influencers who don't even exist to sell their product. It is robbing real influencers of the chance to exercise their passion. And just taking into account that in a few decades, we can predict the extinction of species of real social media influencer, which is really regrettable. Because so many people want to blow up on social media. We can see a lot of them to share their thought, to generate change, and change that mind. You will not happen if social media become slowly a marketing tool. Because think about it, right now social media is used as a platform to make change, to protest against oppression, to push for social and political change, to advocate for the rights of so many disenfranchised people. So our arguments of the opposition team were very clear and convincing, while the proposition team failed to convince and to prove how they are going to support that. We already asked POI about that, how they're going to support that rise of virtual influencers, but they're just saying that we are proposition and we should support them. But how are you going to support that rise? They failed to give those benefits of having those virtual influencers, the benefits of having them. They're just saying some material stuff that I'm gonna rebuttal during the second part of my speech. Well, this is a support motion, and we're reminding them. So now let's do some rebuttal. To begin, the first speaker of proposition spoke about how it will economize money, lower costs, and that it will aware awareness. She said that they will post on time, which means that the proposition team only care about the material side. The costs that they don't need, like which is like, for example, makeup artists. But we responded that the first speaker responded to that we're not caring about that, because rich brands don't care about money. They have a lot of money, they have enough, so that's not an issue for them. Oh, just economizing for the makeup artists, they're generating a lot, and that doesn't matter for them. So that's not a matter of cost. Let me ask you a question, because I mean, here don't you care about the consequences on the public, because you're just giving Prada or Balenciaga, those rich brands that don't care about money, and you're not just caring about the consequences on the public. They're going to be affected, the mental health of those young generation. And the first speaker of opposition, my side, responded that they care about the promotion of those brands. She responded that it won't lower costs and less energy. Says
POI.
the creation took so much, I'm going to take it later, took so much and also energy. It is not easy to create those virtual influencers that took so many times and energy, so many time and energy. The first speaker of opposition spoke about the good image that it will promote to brands. Well, while it won't show the real, they just fiction character. They just show the perfect image they want to show. The first speaker of opposition didn't take into account the stakeholders, and the first speaker of my team reminded them, which are the public, the brands, and the influencer. Yes, I'm gonna take your reply.
Real influencers are already have a bad impact on people. So why wouldn't we support the rise of virtual influencers?
Tell me, those influencers, you're just speaking about energy and cost. You didn't speak about that negative impact, what we did, because that is going to have a negative impact on the society. And the real influencers nowadays, at least they're showing their insecurities, because they're doing some videos. You can see on those social media, they're showing that not everyone is perfect. They're doing those videos. So that's kind of awareness for those young generation, while the virtual one, how they're going to do it, and while they don't have any insecurities. So the second speaker of opposition team kept repeating about that. It will lower costs. And they just repeated the same arguments as the first speaker of their team. They will respect the deadlines of the schedule. Their schedule a protected time, but their schedule, the problem of the team proposition is that they did not give a strong argument convincing us. The second speaker didn't give any argument. She repeated the same arguments of the first speaker. And she keeps focusing on the material and didn't take into account the stakeholders that we already reminded them that we were only speaking and focusing on brands and benefits and the image. But that's not only good for the brand, that's affect the society. The second speaker of my team responded that the real influencers are humans. So that sometimes they're not on deadlines. Until now, the real influencers are doing, for example, Hajar on 2016. She wasn't that good, and look, today she's doing so good. She's also the second speaker also reminded that propositions are just supporting capitalism, and she reminded that Prada, Balenciaga don't care about money, and they're doing good without, they're not kidding about the cost because they have enough to do. So virtual influencers are made to attract most customers and not caring about the rest. The third speaker mentioned Kim Kardashian and other she spoke about them at least that don't show the insecurities because they show that perfect image. How they're gonna know that's a perfect and that's not real? They just going to be affected in their mental health and being insecure. We're not begging you to vote for us, oppose the motion. Thank you.
Okay, the speech time was 8 minutes and 44 seconds. So I'll be stopping the debate now.